People were terrified of COVID. People thought that they had to worship George Floyd. Everyone was just in a weird headspace. They vote for Joe Biden. They think he's going to be like this stabilizing figure who's going to be moderate and rational and reasonable. And then right out the gate, he's been the most extreme leftist progressive president in modern history. So he lied to the very people that nominated him. He lied to the very people that voted for him because they believed somehow he was going to be a moderate. It never fooled me, but he fooled a lot of people.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is very good, very blessed on this end. As always, my friends, I give all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving to our God for that. Special guest today, and you know, there's this myth, I would say, in the mafia that, mob guys don't like strong women. We like weak women. We like women just to keep their mouths shut, stay at home, take care of the kids, and do their duties. Not true. Nothing could be further than the truth than that. Let me tell you, my mother, for those of you that know her, very strong woman, very independent. In many ways, she controlled my dad. I'm going to be honest with you. He couldn't control her, that's for sure. She was rough, in many, many ways. And I always say this, I might have gotten some intelligence, I hope, from my father, but I got my strength from my mother. She didn't spare the rod at all. She was a tough, independent woman, and many guys had wives like that, without a doubt. My wife, strong, independent, opinionated, no doubt about it. She's her own person. My daughters, all 5 of them, strong and independent, raised them that way, and that's how they are. They have their opinions. Nobody controls them. They do the right thing. They know their place, just the way the man has to know his place, but strong women. And my guest today, I would consider her a strong and independent woman. And I like what she has to say. She expresses herself, expresses her views. She's fearless, and she's a rising star in the news industry, I would say. She started with Fox back in 2017. Tomi Lahren is her name, by the way. Many of you know who she is. She has strong opinions. She expresses them the right way. She's done a lot with Fox. So she's a frequent guest on Fox's Outnumbered, a great show that they have in the mornings, I believe. And she's done a whole bunch of things. She at one time was on a show called No Interruption. She was there for quite a while. And now she has her own show, and it's called Tomi Lahren is Fearless. And I think it's very appropriately titled. And it's a pleasure to have her on today. She has a lot of good takes on some of the issues that are going on today, very important issues. And people, this whole thing that's going around now, women on The View, and now we're hearing it with the mayor of Los Angeles, that because she's getting ridiculed for her incompetency in dealing with the fires that are still raging, by the way, as of the time of this recording, and not true. Not true at all. We appreciate and we respect women that can do the job. There are a lot of women that are more capable in certain positions than men are. There's no question about it. But when people are starting to, use the woman card or use the race card, it's not true. If you're a woman and you're in a position to do a job, then you belong in that position and you do the job and do it well. That's it. And I think we have many competent, strong women out there. There was a knock on Donald Trump that he didn't have strong women around him. Not true. Got very strong women, and look at his hires right now, around him. So, but anyway, I love to hear from them. I love to hear their opinions. Today, we're going to talk with Tomi Lahren. Like I said, she has a very good take on a lot of things. We're going to open it up for discussion on some things that are going on today. So without no further delay, Tomi Lahren, my special guest. Tomi, I have to say this. I believe Joe Biden, without a doubt, is the worst president, certainly in my lifetime, maybe in the history of the United States. I just can't believe what this man continues to do day after day after day. And I want to get into that a little bit because, first of all, I want to commend you because I love the title of your show on Outkick, Fearless with Tomi Lahren. Very, very appropriately named, that's for sure. I commend you for being so outspoken, and I commend you for being the voice of reason and sanity and truth. And it's one thing to be outspoken, but it's always that you always hit the mark. And I really have to say that we agree on a lot of things. But with Biden, it's just, oh well, I mean it. I've been following you for a long time now, so. But it's one thing after another with him. And, I think my background. I came from the streets, spent 20 years out there, know every kind of character that you can imagine. And yeah, we did some shady things on the street, no question about it. Look, I did almost 10 years in prison for a crime that I was guilty of. Took my plea, went to prison. But Joe Biden is in a position of trust. And I don't think there's anything worse than being in a position of trust, guaranteeing or promising people that you're going to do the right thing for their benefit, for the benefit of our citizens and the nation, and then get into office and completely do a reverse. And this guy is just, I think he's an evil guy. I think he's a bad guy. I don't give him a pass for his being, unstable mentally. He's responsible fully for everything that he's done. I don't care if they call him a puppet, people are pulling the string. Doesn't matter. He's a grown man in politics for 50 years. He's got a horrible resume. And I think it's time that really people understand this. And I've committed myself over the past several weeks, several months. Really, we want unity in this country, but we can never let people forget what these people did to us because they severely damaged this nation and the world. I mean, just this morning, to add insult to injury, I read that he now wants to release terrorists from Gitmo because Obama promised to close Gitmo down. I mean, and he's doing it in the same way that he pulled out of Afghanistan. He wanted to eliminate the war there. He didn't care who got killed, how sloppy it was. It's just one thing after another with this guy. I just want your take on it.
Yeah, well, listen, I think Joe Biden will go down as the worst president, certainly in my lifetime, but probably in the history of our nation. And I also think that he deceived people right from the get go. I watched those debates before COVID broke out in 2019, leading up to 2020. And I watched all these Democrats sit on the stage and I watched them try to out commie one another. And they all wanted to be socialists, Medicare for all, open the borders, let the illegals in, pay for their health care. I mean, I watched that actually live and in person in LA, actually, at one of the debates. And they picked Joe Biden because he seemed like the most grounded and he seemed like the most moderate. Everybody else was way too cuckoo for Cocoa Pops. Joe Biden was supposed to be the stabilizing force for those that believed all the hoopla about Donald Trump being this big disruptor for negative reasons. And then we watched Joe Biden get elected for those reasons in 2020 when people were terrified of COVID. People thought that they had to worship George Floyd. Everyone was just in a weird headspace. They vote for Joe Biden. They think he's going to be like this stabilizing figure who's going to be moderate and rational and reasonable. And then right out the gate, he's been the most extreme leftist progressive president in modern history. So he lied to the very people that nominated him. He lied to the very people that voted for him because they believed somehow he was going to be a moderate. It never fooled me, but he fooled a lot of people. And I hope that they're finally coming to grips with that and they're having the reckoning that they need to have with themselves over what they did to our country.
Well, and I totally agree. And I think, aside from him being pathological, I mean, the guy lies all the time. I mean, he doesn't even know what the truth is. I think he's very resentful because he ran for president, I think, twice before and really didn't even get a good look. I think he's an angry guy. He throws his chest out like, I've said this many times, and this has been my experience. It's not strong people that you have to worry about. It's weak people that have been given positions of power that they really haven't earned or don't deserve. And that's the category I put him in. And another thing, are you very familiar with the RICO statute?
Only in terms of what they did to Donald Trump and his supporters, which obviously was a complete misuse of that charge. But, I'm sure obviously you know much more about it than me. It probably apply to a lot more people beyond Donald Trump, who I believe is completely innocent of those charges, as are those that were swept up in it with him through political lawfare and weaponization.
Yeah, there's no question. But I can tell you this, I've had 3 racketeering indictments, 2 federal and 1 state that I had to defend. So I'm very familiar with the statute. And I am telling you this without a doubt, without any shadow of a doubt, that the information that the GOP uncovered in that investigation against Biden and his son is 100% a RICO indictment. 100%. There was more information, there was more probable cause and evidence than there was in any of my cases. And I was found innocent on the cases, but I took a plea on one of them. But I believe, everybody's talking about Trump going on this revenge tour. I've been telling my people, and I've been singing this as loud as I could, that these people need to be held accountable. These investigations have to go on. Biden, Pelosi, all of these people that did so much damage. it's not a revenge tour, it's justice. We have to prevent this from ever happening again because it's been so damaging to our country. So I believe that Donald Trump and Bondi and all the people that he's putting, they have to pursue this. This is not even a choice. They have to pursue it if they're going to drain the swamp and clean up this once and for all. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, listen, I'm friends with Kash Patel. He's been on my show a number of times, and I really have a lot of faith in what he's going to be able to do if confirmed to that position in the FBI. I think it's going to be such a big shift, and I think it's going to be so important to restoring the FBI to what it should be and always was supposed to be. So I'm really hopeful for that. But I think Donald Trump's coming in with a killer team. I think he's coming in with people that he knows are not only know the law but know how to use the law effectively and appropriately. And I think that there are certainly people that need to be held accountable. Personally, I hope that Fauci is held accountable
Mm.
someday. I think that the people that orchestrated the COVID response need to be held accountable, including big tech. You're seeing Mark Zuckerberg now trot out there with his, what I believe feels like a hostage message that, oh, Joe Biden made me do it. Joe Biden didn't make you do anything, buddy, because if Donald Trump weren't to be reelected, you would still be doing it. And so all of these people to me need to be investigated, and the people that cause so much harm to our country should be investigated if there's something there. But I also am just such a proponent of first things first, close the border. That's where I stand, Michael. I think close the
Mhm.
border first. Everything else beyond that comes second.
No, I agree with you. That 100% close the border. I think that was one of at least two or three treasonous moves on Joe Biden's part. When you endanger the country to the what he did here, it's treasonous. I mean, the same way with him, basically peddling his vice presidency, and putting himself in a position of being blackmailed by our enemies. That's treasonous. And there's no doubt that it was done. I mean, it's 100%. I mean, the fact that to me, it was an admission, the fact that he pardoned his son for things known and unknown all the way back to 2014. He basically admitted that there was guilt there because he was so worried that something else can come of it. But I just pray and hope that, and if you know Cash, please tell him to pursue this. He's got to go after these people because at the very least, I don't know, you're never going to send Joe Biden to prison, but at very least, people have to understand what happened here. They have to see it. It has to be in their face, and they have to never trust these people ever again and put them in a position of power.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think there are many more folks that are in that swamp that ought to be very concerned about a second Trump administration. And not because he's going to weaponize anything, but because he's just going to uncover things. And I think that's why they worked so hard to keep him from being reelected. But if they really wanted to keep him from being reelected, they really shouldn't have put Kamala in that position because anybody could have seen that that was going to be a disaster. But they had no choice. They DEI'd themselves into that position. The identity politics of it were just too strong, even for reality for them. So, they got themselves into the position that they deserve to be in. And now it's time for Donald Trump to go in and clean house and just really bring America back to what it used to be. And I think so many people are hopeful for that, whether they're willing to admit it or not. I think a lot of Democrats are very excited for January 20th.
Well, growing up, I mean, I was always a Democrat. My family was always Democrat. There wasn't much difference in the ideology between Democrats and Republicans. There was differences of opinion here and there, but basically, we had a unified country, and nobody got too crazy when one president or the other was elected and one was. But it's gone so far to the left now. I don't even know how it happened or where it happened. I don't know how it began like this, but it's so out of control. And I just hope now, it's very encouraging this last election that people seem to really see through it all, especially all this stuff with Donald Trump that was absolutely, I mean, going after him in the way they did was obviously unprecedented and criminal, in my, opinion. I think Biden orchestrated it all or allowed it all to happen, gave the okay for it all. And it all just, got them right back in the face. And, thank God. And let's hope that people really see this and they don't lose sight of it ever again. Do you think Trump, knowing Cash Patel, do you think they're really going to pursue these things?
I do. I think that there is a mandate from the American people that some things have to come first. And I think that we run the risk of investigation fatigue because I don't want the Trump administration stain the first hours and days in to be now we're going after this person. I think it needs to happen, but I think some things need to happen before that. You have to gain the trust and the confidence of the American people who already gave a lot of trust and confidence by electing him in November. But I think they're going to want to see some real tangible things, real kitchen table things that Donald Trump's going to do. There's rumors that he's got like dozens, if not 100 executive orders ready to go. And those things are going to immediately help our situation at the border, help our economy. And so I think those things need to come first. But I think in the natural progression of things and just Cash Patel and others getting in there and getting to work and uncovering, the layers and layers of deception and deceit, I think that they're going to come across a lot. And I think they're going to take action on it. I'm very hopeful for that.
What's your feeling on January 6th? Do you think they should pursue that investigation, that, one-sided investigation that we had? I mean, innocent people are in jail as far as I'm concerned. People that did nothing, not even been charged yet, just sitting in prison. And I know how that feels, and it's terrible. What's your feeling
Yeah.
on that?
Well, listen, I don't think we're ever going to get the truth on it. I don't. I think there will never be a straight answer. But I think that what we can do and what Donald Trump can do is look at those folks that were certainly nonviolent. They're certainly just there on January 6th. And I think he needs to pardon them immediately. Now, the folks there that were attacking officers or doing horrible things, I think those people do need to be held accountable. Their penalties are probably far too stiff for what they did. I'm not familiar with each individual case, but I think those certainly that were nonviolent and that are just sitting there, and the elderly and those that are just wasting away because they were simply present at the Capitol on January 6th. I think that needs to be looked at immediately. And I think Donald Trump's going to take action on that. It's really hard to justify to the American people while you're going to give plea deals to 9/11 terrorists, but you're not going to take a second look at the folks that have been swept up in January 6th. I think that's just a no brainer.
Yeah, I agree with that. Is there any way, if Biden were to pardon people before there's even a crime committed, just pardon them in case something happens? Do you know? I don't know the answer to this. Is there a way for, an investigator to override that, even though it's a presidential pardon for things known and unknown? Is there a way to override that?
Yeah, I think there have been folks looking at the presidential pardon power for a while now and saying maybe it's going a little too far, it's canvassing a little too much. I don't know if it can be undone. I feel like it's pretty rock solid, but he's running out of days. And I think that the number of pardons he's already issued, by the way, not just for his son, but for many, many others, a lot of Democrats really blew the whistle on because it made them look bad. I don't think they really care that they let out predators and this and that. I think it just made the Democrat Party look bad. So I think that in the next 7 days, I don't think he's going to put anything out there. I think he still wants his legacy to be whatever he thinks is in his own deluded mind. But I think that probably the pardons are done, or at least close to done. I don't think we're going to see any shockers. He wants to give his farewell address, and he thinks that people are going to shroud him in roses. I think he's in for a rude awakening, but we just got to hold on a few more days.
Yeah. All right, let me ask you this. I've said this, quite a bit over the past several months. I think the two greatest dangers to our country, to our, constitutional republic. When I call it a democracy, everybody jumps on me. Michael, we're not a democracy, but you understand where I'm going. The two greatest threats are, number one, when the party in power starts to weaponize the Department of Justice and federal agencies to go after their political enemies. We've seen a lot of that, obviously, over the past 4 years. And secondly, when the media, okay, is complicit in covering up this, not only this, but going along with any kind of crime or any kind of behavior for the party that's in power. I think those are the two biggest threats to our country and our democracy. What's your feeling on that?
Well, listen, I agree with you. Not even just the weaponization, but also the media cover up of Joe Biden's physical and mental state. I mean, the fact that for as long as they did, they covered up for this and they told us that him wandering away was misinformation and a cheap fake and a deep fake. All of these people, they might not be, Joe Biden out of office, but they were a part of that. And they need to be held accountable too. And I think they need to be pressed. It was Chuck Schumer who was pressed a week ago about it. And again, he just said, "Oh, the legacy is so great. He did so many things," but he won't actually answer the question. Did you see him slipping and failing? Because if you didn't, we really have to question your judgment. So, whereas, I think that there are a lot of fish that need to be fried here, I do think that the folks that covered up for Biden and his failing state, I do think that they need to be put on the hot seat and asked some tough questions, because that's just inexcusable. You can't have the leader of the free world be only available and awake 10 to 4. I mean, that is just embarrassing.
Tommy, what is it with these people? I saw that interview with Chuck Schumer again. Even after all of this has been exposed, all of Biden's mishaps have been exposed, to stand there and say, again, he didn't answer that question, but to tout his legacy. I mean, there's something have to be wrong with these people. Listen, again, I spent 20 years on the street, and, I was involved in criminal activity. I couldn't do what they did to the extent that they're doing it, just to get up and blatantly lie in people's faces when you're in a position like that and not even care. You're being videoed. People are looking at you. It's all over audio. You sound like a complete fool. What kind of makeup do people have to be able to do that? I don't even understand it.
Yeah, well, I think that they're professional liars and they're very good at it, unfortunately. But I think the mask is slipping because legacy media doesn't have the hold on the American public that it once had. I mean, there's so many alternatives now. People are getting so much more access to information that's outside of the norm, that's highly controlled. So I think that can account for a lot of the change in heart and mind. And I think that we're going to see even more of it. And a lot of these folks that have been establishment swamp creatures for years and years and years on both sides of the aisle, I think that those days of people being in office for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, I think those days are coming to an end. And I think that once you start showing people what's going on and you start showing them all the deception and all of the deceit and the manipulation, I think it's hard to go back the other way. So I'm hopeful. I think this is going to be a real turning point for this country.
Do you believe in term limits?
So I believe in term limits. I don't think it's ever going to happen. I just think you can't entrust the people that need to enact it to put the limits upon themselves. I just don't think it's ever going to happen. But I think, if we can't get there, at least what we can do is educate the voters. Like, stop voting for these people for 40 years. Really take a step back and say, what has this person done for my community? And what has he done for my district or she done for my district? I think that's what it's going to take. And I do think we're on the right track. And I think alternative media and more options, I think that's the way we're going to get there without entrusting Congress to do it themselves.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's lately been more trust in social media outlets than there is in mainstream media. It looks like it's mainstream media. I mean, people don't believe it anymore. I mean, I can't even listen to it. If I listen to Fox, if I don't listen to Fox and a few of the conservative ones, and again, only because you hear sanity and you hear semblance of the truth. But these other things, I look at them and I look at Joy Reid and some of these people and I say, what universe are these people living in? I don't understand it. I really don't.
I think a lot of it's performative, honestly. I think a lot of these people know what they're saying is garbage. The ladies of The View, Joy Reid, Jen Psaki, others, Donna Lemon. I think that they are just so starved for attention, to be honest with you. I think that they do it to get attention because if they were just to speak rationally and realistically from a liberal perspective, I don't think that people would watch them because they watch it for the insanity. People watch it to see how ridiculous these people are. I think that they know that that's their golden ticket to any relevancy is they have to be crazy. And I think a lot of them, some of them might truly be deranged or have some derangement in them, but I think a lot of them just do it for the theatrics, the drama, and the attention. And that's maybe even worse than being truly deranged, in my opinion.
Yeah, I see that. But I don't know. I can't even get into I can't even look at the view when I see that. It's just it's something I don't understand. How these listen. I believe in freedom of speech. Say whatever you want to say, but to get paid the amount of money you get paid to be deceitful to people, I don't agree with that. And I wish the networks would do something about it. For some reason, they thrive with people like this. I don't know, but I think there's a trend. It's changing. I've seen so much backlash for these people now, and they just don't speak the truth, and everything out of their mouth is racism. That's the only way they can justify anything. And, switching gears again, we go back to what's happening here. And Tommy, I got to be honest with you. I've been living here. I lived in LA for 25 years. I moved out in 85 and then came to Orange County about 12 years ago. So I know those neighborhoods really well. I lived there. I've never seen the amount of devastation that's going on there, and I have to say, it's criminal negligence on the part of this governor and that mayor. And I just pray that they're held accountable for this because, these people have blood on their hands. We have 24 people that are dead already. Everybody's been displaced. It's crazy out here. I mean, I'm involved in trying to rehouse some of these people and get them some of the needs that they have. And you get a governor, Newsom gets up there and he's trying to shift the blame on everybody else. He's blaming his own staff. He's blaming local and city governments. He out and out lies. I saw him on an interview with Biden the other day, or they were on a Zoom, and they were talking about the reservoir, and Biden said that's a lie. It's not a lie. The reservoir is empty. There's no question, and the other reservoirs weren't filled to the capacity they should have been. But they get up there and they just lie, and the horrible thing is that there's blood on their hands. People die. People get really hurt by this, and they just go on to the next move. And I just hope that these people are held accountable. I really do.
I think this is a turning point for a lot of people. And I think that any hopes that Gavin Newsom had of running for president in 2028, I think those are gone. And I think that he's doing whatever he can now. He's really scrambling now to try to get, his feet underneath of him because he realizes how bad this is looking for him. But he's just digging that hole deeper and deeper and deeper. And what he ought to do is stop talking. He should stop going in front of the camera. I think he thinks that that's what's going to help him. Like, if I talk more, if I just try to defend myself more, then maybe people will actually believe me. But every time he talks, it's just so disingenuous and it's so fake and it's so inauthentic and it's so just self preserving and indulgent. I think that the more he talks, the worse it looks for him. And I don't think he really has any desire to get to the bottom of it. And especially if getting to the bottom of it shows that his policies and the policies of Democrats up and down helped contribute to this mess, boy, I don't think he'll ever announce it. And I think even worse, I don't think that it's recoverable because I think people distrust him now to a level where no matter what he says, people are going to take that with a giant grain of salt. Even Democrats. California might really be shifting because of this. And it's really sad it took this, but I hope that they're paying attention, those folks that are still living in LA.
No, I agree with that. And if you saw the map, after the elections, and when it was really only the coastal areas that were blue, the rest of all of California was red. So I think they're waking up to that. But I agree with you with Newsom on his recent broadcasts. Before that, he would speak with confidence, and his hair was in good shape, and he looked like he was presidential material, at least in his own mind. He doesn't look that way anymore. He's really backpedaling. He looks like a guy that's really lost his way, can't answer the questions because he's responsible. I mean, there's no question about it. He was, we have fires every year. This is not something new. And this is not climate change. It's been happening since the beginning of time. We know it. Not be prepared for it when we know 100% it's going to happen every single year is just, again, to me, it's criminally negligent when you're in charge of this state's welfare, of the welfare of the people, and you let it go to this degree, cutting $100 million off the budget to clear the brush and help the firefighters, and shifting a lot of it to DEI and to all of these things. And the thing, I don't know if you saw this, but while these fires were raging, the General Assembly was getting together to figure out how they're going to fight Trump and his policies. And I mean, these people, do they understand that people are watching them? How crazy this is?
Yeah, I think and when they were asked about it, boy, they did not like to be asked about their special session to dedicate time, money, and resources into Trump proofing California. It was a really horrible timing, and I'm surprised they still went through with it. But that just shows you that they don't have the decency or the wherewithal or the understanding to even correct themselves when they know that they look bad and they know that they're ridiculous. They just triple down because they understand in California, as well, if not better than I do, that in California, if you're a Democrat, you are shielded, you are protected. So whereas you might have to be accountable to public perception and to media for a time being, they know that they're safe. Like if you're a Democrat in California, you are safe, at least for the time being. So they know that they can mismanage, they know that they can have a great lack of leadership, they can enact horrible things that are such a detriment to their state, but they know that they can essentially do whatever they want because there's no one to challenge that rule in California. It's just Democrat and more Democrat. Maybe that changes now. Maybe we'll see it. I'm not going to get overly confident because I think a lot of these folks are still going to vote Democrat, but maybe, just maybe, there might be some switching over and some just common sense. Even if we just get a common sense Democrat in California, that would still be nice.
Yeah. Well, I think, if Trump does have, excuse me, success, I think people are going to start to look that way because really, like I said, I'm out here. They've had enough. They've really had enough, and I see the trend changing out here. Even among friends of mine that were always Democrat, a lot of people vote Democrat out of habit. This is the way they voted, and so they continue to vote. It's not that they're knowledgeable or they've done their research. I've always said this. I mean, the biggest, you get a guy like Biden, and they call MAGA voters uh, garbage, and when you start knocking the people, and we see that with our celebrities that are knocking the people that voted for Trump or voted for Red, this is when things start to fall apart for them. And I've always given people a pass because people out here, some of them are working two jobs. They go into the grocery store, it's shock, at the cash register. They go to the gas station, it's shock. They don't have time to watch Fox News and to do their research and do all of that. So they don't really know what's going on. They hear a soundbite from one of these Democrats. Okay, that sounds good. And they vote that way out of habit. But I think when people are really starting to open their eyes now and see that these people have been deceptive and been bad for the country, and right now they got to worry about themselves and their families and providing for themselves and their future. So I think there's going to be an awakening. And I think Donald Trump, I agree with you with what you said. I want to hold these people accountable, but first thing he's got to do is try to unify this country. And what I see in him now, I see a change in him. I saw it during the campaign in the last couple of months, especially after that attempted assassination. I think Donald is realizing, you know what, I got to unify this country. I really believe he loves America. I mean, I don't know him, but I know of him way back in New York because I was involved in some of the unions, and I know some of the things. And he and I had the same attorney, and Roy Cohn at one point, so I know I have some insight into Donald. But I really believe he loves his country. He is a patriot, and he wants to do the right thing. So let's hope he can do it. What do you think he needs to do to unify the country?
I think that honestly, him just doing those kitchen table things first and foremost, I think that unifies the country. People start seeing you get the criminal aliens out of this country. People start seeing it in their communities. Okay, we're closing these migrant shelters that have become drug dens and brothels. We're closing those down. Tom Holman's coming in. I think people start seeing it in front of their eyes. It's like, wow, this is real change. Like this is tangible in front of my face. And you start seeing energy independence and you see the price of everything start going down, not only your gas prices, but a lot of people don't understand it's not just gas prices. When you have energy independence and you start exporting your energy, then everything comes down because you got to ship things, you got to fly things here and there. Fuel and the price of fuel impacts all of that. America should be energy independent fully, and we need to take advantage of what we have here and stop relying on nations that hate us to power America. So I think those things are going to change people's mind real quickly. And they're going to look at Donald Trump, they're going to see an extension of the Trump tax cuts, and they're going to say, wow, maybe I don't like the way this guy talks. Maybe I don't like, his opinions on everything, but I'm seeing real things in my life that are changing for the better. And that's going to give people hope, and that's going to unify this country. And he's going to do it, and he's going to do it quickly because he's more motivated than ever, in my opinion. And I'm really excited to see what he does in the first 100 days.
No, I agree with you, and I think you nailed it. He just has to follow through with everything that he said. I think he's determined to do that. And just to again to go back to the border, that today they arrested an illegal migrant that was in a housing that we're paying for. He had $1 million in cash. He had drugs, and he had an AR-15 in his possession in that residential place that he was in. I mean, you know what? You know what gets me when the Department of Justice wanted to really go out and kill organized crime. They had the full resources of the FBI, the Department of Justice, and they did the job. They used the RICO statute effectively. They did the job. They devastated us back in the early 80s. They could do the same thing with these gangs, from Venezuela. They can clean it up quickly. I know from experience, but they choose not to do it. And this is why I say this is criminal negligence. These people have blood on their hands for allowing it to continue to happen. And that's why, and it's not revenge for me. It's just, please, we have to stop this. He's got to get the FBI. There needs to be reform there. I heard, what's his name? The head of the FBI, Ray, is warning us now, what a threat China is. Well, who allowed this to happen? Who allowed all these terrorists and all this Chinese infiltration to come into our country? And now you're just talking about it as you're leaving. I mean, this is unbelievable. And I just hope we just keep sounding the alarm for people to understand We can't allow this to happen anymore.
Can't allow it to happen anymore, and there's gonna be a lot of work that's gonna have to be dedicated in these next 4 years, and I think primarily just focusing on mass deportations, and I know folks wanna get the criminal aliens out first, that's great, that's gonna take a while to do, even just that, but, I often say it doesn't sound nice, but there are also millions of people in this country who maybe aren't criminal aliens, they came in illegally, but they didn't commit more crimes, but they still need to go. We cannot support the world in the United States of America while Americans are struggling. We cannot afford to have migrant shelters where they have 3 meals a day and they have everything they need taken care of and they got debit cards and they're going to school and they're getting free health care. We simply cannot afford it. And I think there has to be a real come to Jesus moment for a lot of people that see themselves as compassionate. You can't be compassionate when you're overrun. And you can't begin to take in real refugees that need it when you are completely overrun and devastated. These cities are going to go bankrupt. They're going to go bankrupt quick. New York's learning it, Chicago's learning it, Massachusetts is learning it. We simply cannot support the world's people invading our borders and sustain that. It can't happen. Mass deportations need to happen. Criminals first, but there's going to be more folks that need to go. And that doesn't sound nice, but it's the truth.
No, I agree, and it seems that Holman is the guy. He's the right man for the job. I don't think he's going to back down to any of these, sanctuary cities, governors or mayors or anything else. These mayors that are talking big now, let them go to jail for a couple of days. I guarantee they'll change their tune. They all talk big until those bars close behind them. Trust me on that. Let me ask you this: um, the 2020 election. Do you think that that should be investigated? I, for one, I've been saying it. I believe it was fraudulent. I don't think Biden won that election 100%. And I think it should be investigated. I've been reading lately that Patel is thinking about it. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, here's my thing on this. A lot of people are very unhappy, and there's a lot of inconsistencies. And you live in California, so you know about mail in voting. And I've been sounding the alarm on mail in voting since way before the 2020 election. When I lived in California and I got a mail in ballot, I didn't request one. And I wanted to go and vote and show my ID, and they told me to put it away. I've been sounding the alarm on these kind of things for many years before it became the national norm. So rather than, in my opinion, rather than going back to 2020 and rehashing that, I think it was just a dark time in every sense of the word in this country, whether it be COVID, BLM, election, all of it. I think what we can better use our time in is moving forward on election integrity measures to make sure our elections are safe and secure. The RNC, Lara Trump, Watley did a great job this
Yes.
last election in making sure that they were taking every resource and they were checking all the boxes and they had people watching, and that gave people a lot of trust and confidence. We need to nationalize that and make sure that that is the norm for every election moving forward. So to me, that's where the resources need to go. I don't think we should look back. I don't think we're ever going to get anywhere looking back. I don't think anyone's going to be held to account. I think move forward, secure our elections, give people the hope that our elections are secure, and tamp down on any fraud that's occurring or may occur. I think that's the way that we correct this problem.
You're probably right on that. I just go back because, again, I think it was so grievous what they did. But I agree with you there. I think Lara Trump was the hero of this election because she was so well prepared, and she made sure, because we know there was attempts to try to pull fraud again, and we were well prepared for it. She did a great job. And from what I understand, they're thinking about the Supreme Court thinking about requiring voter ID and no mail-in ballots, no paper ballots. What do you think about that? You think
Well,
that's
I
something?
think I think universal voter ID should just be the norm anyway. I don't know if the Supreme Court will take that on, but I just don't know how you can argue against it. It's just to me that's the whether you believe whatever you believe about 2020, it really doesn't matter. I think that Republicans, Democrats, Independents should all be able to agree that proving you are who you say you are and that you are in fact eligible to vote in the United States of America, I think that should just be baseline common sense. Every state in the nation should be able to enact that. And I think if you have that, you have a lot more security. Personally, I'm not a fan of mass mail in votes. I don't like mail in ballots. I don't like them. I think that you should always have custody of your vote. And I think that that's the safest way. Whether that's ever going to happen again, I don't know. But I think that there are some election measures that are never going to end. I think that early voting is here to stay. And some people like early voting. I early vote because of what my job entails. I can't always get there on election day. I like early voting in person, But I think there needs to be a real discussion about voter ID. And I think that's the simplest and should be the least controversial method. Just show your ID. If you have to show your ID to board a plane, unless you're an illegal immigrant, then you should show your ID to vote.
Yeah, and just to further that, I was getting mail-in ballots when I was a convicted felon. I wasn't even allowed to vote, and they were sending it to me, and I wouldn't do it because I was afraid it was a setup that maybe I would vote and then they'd come after me for it afterwards, you know. But yeah, it's so lax and lackadaisical here, and they don't count your votes until what, 2 weeks after the election. I mean, it's just crazy what they're going on here. Hopefully, they'll get that in order. A couple of things before we go. DEI. I look at DEI as a cult, as a religion. I'm hoping that it ends for good. I say this all the time. I tell my people, look, I'm Italian. I'm proud of my heritage. But if there was an Italian running for office and I thought he was incompetent, I wouldn't care if it was black, white, red, Polish, Russian. I don't care who. I want the most competent person in office. And I think it's horrible what they've done. It's become a cult and a religion. It becomes before everything. And I hope to God that Trump really, really does something to stop this. And I think people are seeing it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I also think that it really sets back disenfranchised communities. It sets them back 50 years, what DEI has done. Because now, and actually, it even somewhat kind of frustrates me because now every time you see incompetence, now people go, oh, that's because that's a DEI person, whether it was or not. So I think that it's just been damaging to everyone, every race, every color, every gender, every identity. I think that affirmative action was a horrible idea. Maybe it was necessary at one point, certainly not now. I think just merit should take over. And I think if you're a white man and you can do the job, by God, maybe the white man should get the job. If you're a white woman, you should get the job. If you're a black woman and you're the best person for the job, you should get the job. If you have 72 gender options, I don't care. If you're the best person, get the job and you should be the one in charge. And so I think that we're going back to that. And I think that Democrats and leftists and progressives really overplayed their hand in 2020 through 2024 with the whole DEI social justice activism. They turned a lot of people off because they got so crazy with it and they were so wild and enamored with it that people lost all respect for the concept. So I think the pendulum is going to swing back to a place of common sense, merit, and really just reality. Just let's just go back to reality. And I'm hopeful that we're heading in that direction.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, it's been highlighted here that the firefighters, the three people in charge are all, they said DEI hires. I mean, they're all, and people are complaining about that because they're saying, listen, women firefighters, they're not capable of going in and picking up somebody and bringing them out if there was a fire and they had to pull somebody out of a house. And I understand that. To me, I want a 6'6" guy that can carry me and get me out the door if something went wrong. But, I agree with you. I hope people are seeing that and they just move back. And yeah, we don't want to be prejudiced against people that, of whatever, whatever they are. But we have to have some common sense about it. Last thing before I let you go. Um, this whole transgender men, are they men or women in women's sports? It's just, I don't understand how the Democratic Party could allegedly be so pro women and then stand up for this, in sports. How they can be so contradictory about it, wide out in the open. I don't get it. And I know what your position is already, but please say something about it because I want to hear it.
Well, I'll give you some optimism. I think that that was soundly rejected in this election. And although people didn't list that as one of their top election issues, it certainly made a difference to a lot of folks out there that maybe considered themselves socially liberal, very pro LGBTQ, that were like, wait a second here. The Democrat Party is for they, them. They want men and women's sports. They want men and women's locker rooms. They want men and women's bathrooms. It doesn't make sense. It's ridiculous. Someone's going to get hurt. This is going to be abused. And the women are the ones that are going to suffer for this. And so I think that you're going to see a big change in this. And I think it's going to be shot down immediately, not only in the courts. I'm very hopeful that there are going to be some courts that are going to take a stand on this, but also just this administration coming in. I think you're going to see more people that are more willing to speak truth to power and say that this has gone too far. You can be pro gay, pro trans, pro all of that, and understand that women still need sports and spaces that are for them. And I'm very hopeful, and I think this is going to be a great example of what's to come. You're seeing Democrats even change their tune on this issue, whether it's because they realize they're electorally vulnerable or not. I don't know, but I think we're moving in the right direction on this issue. And I'm hoping that come 2026, we just come back home to reality that we need men and women's sports. Just that's the least we can do.
Well, I can't agree with you more. And I have to say this, I have a very independent wife of almost 40 years. I have 5 daughters, all of them very independent. And I just appreciate your voice. And listen, I think in a lot of ways, women are a lot smarter than men. I know my wife is more perceptive than I am in a lot of ways about people. So all I can ask you is just keep doing what you're doing, keep enlightening people. And you've been a tremendous voice out there, and just keep it up, Tomi. I appreciate it. I know a lot of people do.
Well, thank you so much for those kind words. And thanks for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation. I'll have to get you over on Tomi Lahren is Fearless on Outkick because we'd love to have you.
I would love to do that. All right, my friends. Well, there you have it. And I have to say, thinking back, she might have a better perspective on this than I do with respect to Trump and the Department of Justice going after these people that I think did serious damage to us over the past 4 years. I think we need to hold them accountable. But Tomi had a different take on it. She agrees with that to an extent. But what she said was, Trump's job right now, his main job, handle the border. That's number one. We all know that. And then to unify the country. So as much as she would like to see those people held accountable, it's more important in her opinion, and I value that and I respect that, to get the country on track. So, there again, sometimes women have a better perspective on things than we do. I'm still going to stick to we got to hold these people accountable. Why? So that it doesn't happen again. We don't get people following in their footsteps. We have to set precedents with our politicians. But she was terrific. I thought it was a great interview. I like her take on everything. Keep your eye out on her because she's a rising star in this industry. And Tomi Lahren, Fearless, on that great show that she has. So that's it for today, my friends. How do I always leave you? Same way, never going to change. Be safe. Not going to get into it. I always preach on that because I really care. Be safe. Be healthy, of course. We're going to see a tide turning in now. We're going to be healthier in this country in 2025. And yes, God bless each and every one of you, your families, your friends, your neighborhoods, and all the people that you love. And yes, God bless America. See you next time.